How's it going, guys? It's Kuz, and today I'm going to go over supply and demand and how to draw your supply and demand zones. So, before anything, I'll explain the basics. What is supply and demand? It's basically just an area where buyers are stronger than sellers, or sellers are stronger than buyers. Why does this strategy work? It works because it's how institutional traders place their buy and sell orders, and I personally rather trade on the institutional side rather than the retail side. And how are these zones formed? They're formed when there's a period of sideways action followed by an explosive move up, showing strong interest in that area. And I consider this the cheat code to day trading. So, how's the demand zone formed? It's formed before an uptrend. You look for a basing candle, an explosive move up. You start from the higher time frames and you work your way down. When demand is greater than supply, the price goes up. Right here, you can see the basing candle for the demand zone, and then the explosive move up, which would be this candle and this candle. Right here, the demand zone starts from the top of the body of the red candle and then to the bottom of the wick. Usually when price comes back down here, orders get filled and it tends to go up. Supply and demand is basically the same thing, just vice versa. It's formed before a downtrend. I don't know why it says uptrend. You look for a basing candle and then an explosive move down, and you start from higher time frames, you work your way down. When supply is greater than demand, the price tends to go down. Same thing. When the stock comes back up here, prices get filled. Orders get filled, and then the stock comes back down. Now let's get into charting some supply and demand zones. I'm using Thinkorswim because I just personally think it's the best charting platform, and it offers ES, which a lot of brokers don't offer. So I'll be using Thinkorswim for this video. So looking at the time frames, I start from the 4-hour time frame and then I work my way down until the 15-minute time frame. The higher you are in the time frames, the stronger the zone is. But keep in mind, it's harder to find a pivot point inside of these zones just because the area technically tends to be bigger. So it's important to draw all these zones even if they overlap each other, because that's how you find the pivot point inside of these zones. I'll explain that a little more later, but let's just get started and look for some demand zones. One more thing, I chart ES rather than SPY just because ES provides me with authentic price auction after hours when SPY doesn't. ES is a 24-hour chart, so it just gives me a better gauge of what's actually going on. So it's pretty simple drawing the zones. Let's start right here. Oh well, that's too much of a zoom. So right here, you could find a basing candle followed by a big move up. Right here forms a demand zone. So I grab the price level line, and then I show the name and I type in 4-hour, and that's how. Right there, it's a 4-hour zone. You go right here, you put this thing, the rectangle, and then you have a green box. Right there, that's a zone. Personally, I don't like trading off of zones like this. As you can see, the basing candle has a big wick, so it just makes it. To me personally, I think it's a weaker zone. I don't tend to take trades off of these areas, but I always draw it just in case something does happen. Let's look for another demand zone. So right here, you could see there's a demand zone formed on, let me just use the rectangle. Right here's a demand zone, right? But if a demand zone is broken, as it is right here, you can see the wick goes past it. I removed this zone just because it's invalid. It serves no purpose after that. So you just spend, it takes usually about 30 minutes for me to chart ES and NQ together. And yes, I chart both of them just so I know what's going on. So right here I see no other demand zones. Let's see if we see any supply zones. Let me look back. And you're supposed to do this throughout the entire chart just so you know where orders are sitting at and ready to be filled. Right here is a supply zone up here. You can see this is a supply zone because there's a basing candle and then a big move down. So I go, show name, I type in 4-hour because it's a 4-hour zone. And I keep the color red because it's a supply zone rather than a demand zone. Get your rectangle tool, and then you draw the zone. Change the color to red. It's actually probably pink, honestly, and I switch the transparency to 75-ish. So right here we have a supply zone and demand zone. And then we work our way down. We go to the 3-hour. We see if we see any new zones here. I don't see any new demand zones, so I start looking for supply zones. Let's see. Right here. Right here you can see a supply zone, that was used. So that shows you how this strategy works. Right here is the supply zone, and let me switch the color to red just so you have a better visual. 75. Okay, so this is the supply zone. This is the basing candle and then the move down. Right here you can see the supply zone was tested, and then it was tested one more time, and then price began to fall. So this shows you this was a valid zone just because it was tested twice and it did its purpose. So right here you could have got short, you would have got stopped out when it went back into supply, but then you could have got short again, and then you could have followed through. That's a supply zone right there. We drag this all the way across just so we know. And when a zone is used, what is this, 3 hour? When it's used, I type in 3 hour and then used, just so I know if the zone is weaker than it should be. So right here is another supply zone. It takes some time to get used to seeing it. Like right now, I'm pretty good at just finding it from a distance, but just with practice, you'll get there. Right here is the supply zone, my price level, and then I write the time frame I found this supply zone in. So right here you see the supply zone. It came close, but it never actually touched, so I would have never entered this trade, but you could see it did react. I guess there might have been a lower time frame zone here, and it caused the price to fall. So then you just do this throughout the whole time frames I mentioned, 4 hour all the way to 15-minute. I added those. Some of these time frames here are customized. It's not hard to add. You can just look at these and then add them on your own. And then there's not many demand zones, so I don't really see them. But right here you can see a supply zone. Oh, where is it? Right here. This is the basing candle. This is the move down. Right here you can see the zone was tested, and then it stopped over the wick, so this zone would have been invalid, and as you can see it was invalid because the stock continued to go up past the zone. So I'm not going to draw every single zone. I'm just giving you guys a basic view of how to draw these zones. If you have any questions, just always contact me. I'm always down to help you guys. Let me show you what a ugly zone would be. Right here is the demand zone. You can see the basing candle and then the big move up. Only issue with this zone is the wick. Let me write this first. It's a 90-minute zone, so let's draw this real quick. Right there. That's the demand zone. So this wick right here is what I'm talking about. You see it's basing and then the big move up, but the wick shows you that the stock was up here, so it shows you that it's not as valid as it should be. Like a demand zone like this is more valid than a demand zone with a bigger basing wick. Alright, right here we see another supply zone. It's 90-minute time frame right here. So we switch, like, you understand the basics of this. You basically just go throughout the whole chart. You find these areas of interest and you draw them. So it seems easy because you're just drawing boxes on a chart, but it's rather much harder than just drawing a box. You can't just take a trade based off stock being in the supply or demand zone. You have to understand market context and understand why a stock is moving in the way it is, and what it means for the stock to be in the area that it is. For example, if the stock is rallying and there is no supply being formed as a stock rallies up, like right here, there's not much supply. As you can see, there's a big move up and then consolidation, and it keeps on going up. So there's really no supply being formed. So there's no reason for you to be short in this stock in this area specifically when there's no supply being formed. That's what I mean by market context, and that's something that you just learn over time and experience. It's not something that could really be taught because it's something that is learned with experience, like I just mentioned. But right here you can see another what time frame is another 45-minute zone. And mention the lower time frames, the weaker these zones are, so that's something to take note of. And then sometimes there tends to be 2 zones in one area. For example, right here, this is a 4-hour zone, and like I mentioned earlier, it's hard to pivot where the pivot point is inside a 4-hour zone just because you see how large it is. It's about 25 points, so you can't just take a guess to see where the change will be, where buyers will step in. So right here we're on the 30-minute time frame, and right here you can see demand zone inside of the 4-hour zone. So that's likely a stronger area for buyers to step in, just because there's 2 demand zones in that area, causing the price to change, and then for the demand zone to work. And that's pretty much it. You do this throughout, like I said, the 4-hour, 3-hour, 2-hour, 90, 1 hour, 45, and 30-minute time frames, along with the 15-minute. You draw them, and then it just takes practice. You watch how price reacts in certain areas. You see how these zones are formed, and just overall, the context is involved in this. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. How to draw supply and demand zones. This was rather a very basic video. I could go more in depth on it, but this was also my first video doing this, so that's probably why it's pretty sloppy. But other than that, if you have any questions, always let me know. I love answering questions. But that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys learned something in this video. Thank you.